topic, but man, there's some good things going on here. All throughout the day, we're going to hear about the different stories, the organization, and encourage you to make donations so you can help make a difference in the lives of children that need their services. And joining me right now is Karla Tye. She's the Executive Director of the Children's Advocacy Centers of Mississippi. And Karla, I saw your name and I said, oh, we get to meet again this year. And it's a tough topic, but man, it's a good topic to talk about because the awareness is so important. So I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to have you back and for you to remind us all the good work that the advocacy centers do across the state.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me back. And you're right, this is a really important month for us to be able to call some attention to this very important issue. We have 12 child advocacy centers across the state, and Sally Kate Winters does a fantastic job here locally. Our child advocacy centers are there from the very beginning of an investigative report, usually receive referrals from Child Protective Services or law enforcement, and they are there from the very beginning of that case all the way to the end to make sure a child has a forensic interview that's done in a way that is non-leading, non-suggestive, and a child can tell in a safe place what's happened to them. Then we make sure that they get into the right therapy, they get medical treatment, and then when this goes to court, if it goes to court, then they can be there to accompany the child and help prepare them for that day that they may have to testify.
It's so much more than just being a caseworker, right? Like, I feel like it's the more that I learn about what the advocacy centers do, I mean, if you think about it, because not every case involves like the parent, and then some do. Even if the ones it doesn't, it's like they're a basket case. They don't know whether, what papers to sign or where to go next or what to keep up. They're as emotional as everything else that this whole spiraling is sort of happening. So you've got someone that can be like a grounding force of like calm. I feel like that's like a, it's just kind of like that anchor, the eye of the hurricane. It's going to be like your high, but I guess the eye is probably not a good thing, but you get what I'm trying to say.
I do, and absolutely, the child advocacy is there for that family, for the guardian who is there to help that child, whether that is a parent or somebody else that the child is living with that's in a safe place. Child abuse is very complex. There's so many agencies that have to jump into responding to these cases that it can be very confusing for our family. They're feeling pulled in a lot of different directions. Most people don't know the difference between circuit court and chancery court and youth court. And so the Child Advocacy Center staff is really there to help that family as they navigate through this system. You've got individuals that are highly trained in the forensic interviewing and advocacy and therapy. So this is, as you say, much more than case management. That they are there to provide that very specialized support for children.
So how do the Children Advocacy Centers and then Sally Kate work together? Because you both provide different, I guess pathway or different services, but the same services sometimes overlap. So how do they complement each other? How are you working together?
Sure. So I'm with the state chapter, the Children's Advocacy Centers Network, and so we provide training and technical assistance to all of our member centers across the state, and we have 12 of those. So we are there to provide that broader service and support for those agencies. Sally Kate Winters is you're actually on the front line, and one of their programs is the Child Advocacy Center. So you talked a little bit about their other programs.
So they house you guys.
They have one Child Advocacy Center here.
Yes. Which helps then help them stay in one place while they're navigating through their other therapies, maybe having to stay one of those 2,896 nights of safe sleep, and so they're not having to be bounced around and move all around. You kind of have everything under one roof, which I think is very helpful.
It's really nice that they have other services here that can complement the Child Advocacy Center services. So the children that are coming through the Child Advocacy Center have typically been victims of what we consider felony level child abuse. So most often that's going to be sexual abuse. Or very severe physical abuse, witnessing a violent crime, most likely a homicide. And so these kids are going to need a lot of services, and having an agency that can just wrap around them and get them all the services they need and link them up with community services that they may not be able to offer here is critical to long-term healing. So we know that the most success for a child is if their caregiver can have that support and can get the tools that they need to help them during this difficult time. So it's fantastic to have a center like Sally Kate Winters that can step in and help both the child and the family.
Today is all about helping support Sally Kate winners, and you can do that by donating and going to the website to do that, sallykatewinners.org. But what is the, you think about, I think about the listeners like, well, there's not child abuse necessarily in my home, or, that's not really something in our community or that we see much about. It can't be, that rampant. It's just sort of the same with some of the other tough topics that we talk about here. Does it happen more than we want to think about it?
Absolutely. You think the statistics tell us that this year 400,000 babies alone will be victims of sexual abuse by the time they reach their 18th birthday. So 400,000 babies born this year will be sexually abused.
And the important part of the therapy part, right? Because we might not always can stop the abuse, which I think raising awareness and learning the red flags and understanding who our children are hanging with and all those things play an important role of lessening that number, right? But then it's like bad things are still going to happen no matter how much we try to prevent. Then we have to talk about rushing in and healing as quickly as possible. The lasting effects. So and this is going to sound like a terrible question, but why should we care about that individual getting long-term therapy? What is in it for the community for that person to be restored, other than the fact that it's just a decent human being thing to want? But what is in it for us?
Well, no one person can do everything, but everybody can do something to help support children who've been abused. And we need to care as a community. We know that when children do not get healed or not offer the services they need to heal early on, that when they become adults, that they're more likely to enter the criminal justice system, more likely to have teenage pregnancies. You are more likely to have reduced income later. I mean, there's a lot of implications that have been studied for having
offender themselves.
Yeah, these adverse childhood experiences impact children, and so that's why it's so important for us during April to be talking about prevention, to stop this before it occurs, and talking about what can youth-serving organizations do to prevent this from happening. What kind of policies are they putting in place? Talking to families about what are you saying to your children? How are you educating your children about what happens if somebody approaches them or makes them feel uncomfortable, or tries to engage them in an activity that they're not comfortable with, whether that be in another child or an adult. We need to be talking to our state leaders about real resources to help with some innovative responses to child abuse. So it takes the entire community responding effectively.
And it really could be your child, right? Especially
Absolutely.
now, like as a mom of two young girls, a 10 and a 3-year-old, it's terrifying just with everything's going on digitally now. You think you know who's in their circle, and then you still hear stories about, you shouldn't necessarily go through your life not trusting anyone, but you should, have your spidey sense up, right, about it all. And I think the more you talk about it, the less it makes it uncomfortable to talk about, right? And then now you want your mom groups and your friend groups and everybody to sort of share their own, and suspicion's not in a gossipy way, but just in a very caring and sort of community sort of way of like, hey, we're all watching out for everybody. And then taking care of those who find themselves in an unfortunate situation, which is exactly what Sally Kate Winners Family Services does. And one of the services you do house here is the Children's Advocacy Centers. Could y'all have more names? But that's just service, sort of for you in general. If somebody wanted to know more about the
Advocacy Centers.
Thank you. Yes. It's a tough word after you say it 12 times. Specifically, Karla, how do they find out that information?
They can go to our website at childadvocacyms.org, or I'm sure that there's material about the Advocacy Center on the Sally Kate Winners website as well.
And those that are looking to go into social services or looking for different avenues in terms of therapy, are there need for more therapists, for more caring and loving support in this area? Can you specialize in dealing with kids in trauma and all the things?
Absolutely, and we have a really unique program under our umbrella called the Child Advocacy Studies, where we are working with all of our colleges and universities to try and build out this base that is much more knowledgeable and is prepared to go out into the workforce, because we do need those specialized therapists. You can't just come out of school knowing what to do. This is an ongoing training and education. Same with forensic interviewing and advocacy. So we're doing a lot of work with our colleges and universities to try and build that base. We hear over and over that Child Protective Services is understaffed. They need more individuals working there. So our hope is that through this program we can close that gap of our need of those responding to the cases versus those that we have now.
And you can help make all that possible today or any day that you want to help support Sally Kate Winters and all of the great work that they're doing here. Don't forget, you can go to Sally Kate Winters FamilyServices.org to donate, and you can also stick with us. We get more good things for you coming up next.